In recent years, there have been some accusations that Star Trek now isn't Star Trek as it's supposed to be, that it's too action-heavy and that it's lost the old intrepid spirit somehow. And while there's still action in the hotly anticipated Picard's teasers, this second trailer out of New York Comic Con dials up the intrigue, the pure sci-fi feel, and the political allegory. So there's even more reason to be excited. Star Trek, it seems, is home again. It's also packed with new details and new story hints, and just as with the first one, there's a lot to unpack that might not necessarily be picked up on first watch. So let's break it down. I'm Simon from WhatCulture.com, and this is 17 huge details everyone missed in Picard's second trailer. Number 17, Picard's new badge. At the opening of the CBS All Access trailer, which has been trimmed off for the Amazon Prime version, we see Picard in the uniform he'll probably be wearing for the majority of the show's run. It was assumed after the first trailer that the badge he's wearing, which replaces his old comms badge presumably because it's got an inbuilt tracking device and he's not on an authorised mission, was a Picard family emblem. That's not the case though. On closer look, the badge appears to be a mysterious new addition. The look of it suggests Romulan language, only stylised somewhat into a design that looks a little like a mermaid. Could this perhaps have been a gift from a Romulan who holds him in high regard? That's pure speculation for now, but it certainly changes things. Number 16, the Vineyard Dream. As the first trailer confirmed, Data is back, complete with some, let's say, interesting makeup and effects work. And although the suggestions seem to be that Picard was using a holodeck in the first trailer, it's actually more likely that this is a dream. Memory is certainly involved because he and Data are noticeably wearing their next generation uniforms rather than the later redesigned uniforms. Why that's important will no doubt come back to the fact that Picard's narrative is linked to something big from the Next Generation days. Several big things, in fact. It's also nice to hear the familiar wind section from the opening of the Next Generation theme play subtly in the background here too. Number 15, the painting really matters. Painting has popped up before for Data and Picard's relationship, of course. In a matter of perspective, Picard attends an art class along with two other crew members where they paint a nude model. Data turns art critic and savagely criticises Picard's work in a hilarious exchange from before Picard's edges were softened a little more. Perhaps this is an anxiety dream based on that moment. Picard could perhaps be reliving moments that challenged his ideas of himself, which fits with him having to reassess his relationship with the Borg. The reason this moment is so loaded in The Next Generation and why its evocation here is interesting is that the subtext to it is that Data cannot understand the nuances of art because he's not human. And yet Picard is upset because he treats his criticism as if he is human. That blurred distinction is going to matter a lot in Picard. As for what the painting could mean, there are a couple of interesting things to note. First, the obscured face, which Data invites Picard to complete, suggests Jean-Luc is wrestling with concepts of identity, which makes sense given his isolation and distance from Starfleet. It also fits in with Data's journey to being more human that played such a big part of his arc, and in particular was an important part of two key The Next Generation storylines where the new show is concerned: Descent and The Measure of a Man. And on top of that, there may be more. The figure beckoning towards the sea suggests a siren, a seductive mythical creature who lured sailors to their death. If this isn't foreshadowing of somebody in Picard's crew, or even on a grander scale, hiding their true destructive motives, then I don't know art criticism very well. Number 14, Picard's last mission was unauthorised, and probably went wrong. It turns out that Picard's standing with Starfleet is now more complex than he'd expect of a captain whose ship is immortalised at Starfleet's HQ. He's told he has no say in Starfleet's mission because this isn't his house anymore, which is surprisingly disrespectful. The reason is seemingly revealed later on in the trailer, as it turns out that Picard undertook an unauthorised rescue mission of some sort that clearly seems to have backfired. The suggestion throughout the trailer is that the mission went wrong. He expresses that he retired looking for safety, for instance. He also walks with a cane through his vineyard, and the ensign who greets him and hands him a visitor's badge, itself an indication that he's lost his reverence at Starfleet, says, "It's good to see you up and about again." Was Picard injured badly? Is this the reason he retired? Number 13, the attack on the Federation. As Picard and Data interact in the vineyard, and just before Picard says one is never safe from the past, we see what appears to be flashbacks of something bad from Picard's past. The suggestion is that whatever unauthorised rescue mission he undertook led directly to the violent response seen in those shots throughout the trailer. Or that attack inspired the ill-fated rescue plan that saw Picard's position under threat. There are some intriguing things to note about those shots. First, there's the question of what they're attacking. It would appear that the first shots are on a planet's surface, They're definitely in atmosphere because of the smoke, after all. But later, we see them attacking a space station. The space station in question looks like a Starfleet design, reminiscent of Jupiter Station. The central column unit is probably too thin for Earth's space dock, but it definitely fits that these unknown assailants would attack a repair station like Jupiter if they had plans to deplete Starfleet's armada. Could this all be the Romulans' payback for Starfleet not doing more to prevent the destruction of Romulus? Could this be a pod of extremists looking for revenge? Time will tell. Number 12, the alien ships. We see the attacking ships in pretty good detail a couple of times, but it's unclear what they are or who they belong to at this stage, because they appear to be brand new. There are some hints though. The wing formation and the tail portion are very much reminiscent of older generation Romulan birds of prey, with a much more modern spin on them, and the Romulans being a big presence in the show would seem to fit. But more intriguingly, the construction material and the lighting setup definitely feels like it owes something to Borg technology. Could these be the ships that the Romulans develop using the salvaged Borg ship we've seen in both trailers so far? They certainly look like a hybrid of the two techs. Number 11, the future might not be as rosy as it once seemed. As we see shots of Earth, we get a camera pan over the Golden Gate Bridge, which intriguingly is covered in solar panels. This is all very interesting because the idea of that sort of technology even being necessary is sort of a contradiction of what we know about the future in this universe. Since 2147, humans have used matter-antimatter reactors, allowing for basically limitless energy. So why would they need to top it up? Has something happened to threaten the stability of this brave new world? Is that why Starfleet are seemingly developing new technology and new androids, and the Romulans are repurposing Borg technology? Number 10, Noonien Soong's facility. So here we come to one of the main thrusts of the story. It seems that Picard's dystopian future is the realization of everything he feared would come of Dr. Noonien Soong's technological discoveries in The Measure of a Man. In that classic episode, cybernetic researcher Commander Bruce Maddox demanded that data be handed over to Starfleet for research with the intention of developing an android army and putting an android on every Starfleet vessel. Picard argued for Data's rights as a sentient individual and won the case. But with Picard out of the picture, it appears the research may have went on. Perhaps thanks to B4's body, which we saw in the first trailer, or even Data's, it seems a whole facility has been developed to create androids to Soong's specifications. There's a huge hint in the fact that the android we see is called F8, and that Picard's crew includes a cyberneticist, that he turns to Seven of Nine and Hugh for help, and that he's haunted by dreams of Data. Picard wanting to protect android rights fits with the long-established story thread, of course, and it also fits with Picard's need to protect Data's legacy. Number 9, the prison is actually the android facility. It was assumed that the facility shown in the first trailer is a prison of sorts, where the Romulans conduct experiments on the Borg. But it seems to be more complex than that now that the new trailer is out. This trailer confirms that that facility and the android facility where Picard sees F8 are one and the same. How could we tell that? Well, because the drones shown in both are identical. And even more revelatory is the fact that Dahj and the supposed prisoners from the first trailer don't seem to be prisoners at all, at least not in a traditional sense. They appear to be working at the facility. Perhaps they're there under duress, but it certainly doesn't look like it. And the shot of the Romulan guards on the walkways in the first trailers may not be for their control, but for their protection. But why would Starfleet be okay with the Romulans developing androids? And if it's secret, why is Picard allowed to see them at all? The assumed prisoners are clearly not androids despite wearing similar uniforms, and if they're not traditional prisoners, then what are they? Later, it's shown that there's an attack on the facility because a doctor lies dead and Borg body parts hang in the foreground. Could this be what leads to Dahj's escape, or is this what leads to the Romulans taking over the facility in the first place? Number 8, another traveller? At one point, we see Picard seemingly taking counsel from a new character, played by David Paymer, whose credit isn't even listed on IMDb yet, curiously, but it's definitely him. The question here is clearly who this is. It's unclear what his race is, but he's definitely familiar. The brow and the distant hairline, and the colour of his hair for that matter, is very much reminiscent of the Traveller. He also appears to have the same three-fingered hands, which pretty much seals the deal. Given Starfleet's records, that would suggest this character is also from Tau Alpha C or Tau Ceti, depending on which episode of Next Generation you choose to believe. Quite what his relationship with Picard is, or how he came to Earth from this very distant planet remains to be seen. It is, after all, unlikely that it's the same traveller character. Number 7. The Romulan Splinters. We know from this trailer that the Romulans have rebuilt somewhere because there's a shot of a cliffside city which is pretty clearly Romulan, as given away by what looks suspiciously like a variation on a Narvassum-class subspace station seen in the sky in the background. These stations are usually only deployed in sensitive areas, which would fit with the idea of the Romulans colonising somewhere else. Interestingly, there seem to be a lot of different Romulans in this trailer, and there's a distinct possibility that the destruction of Romulus has led to its survivors being splintered into different groups. We know that the Romulan Star Empire is still a thing somehow, because the logo is seen on the research facility in the first trailer, and the Romulan guards are clearly traditional Romulans. They also presumably own the birds of prey we saw in the first trailer, which seem to be approaching Vulcan, or at least another red planet, and also the ones patrolling the Borg cube. Then there are the mysterious presumed Romulans who attack the Federation site in the flashbacks with their new ships. They're probably a secret element of the Star Empire, to be honest. You have to suspect that Harry Treadaway's Narek is actually also working for them, since this trailer seems to set him up as being a secret antagonist. At least that's what we're led to believe. Then there are the Romulans loyal to Picard thanks to his work trying to save their people from the destruction of Romulus. He spearheaded the rescue operations, and they won't forget what they owe him, which is perhaps why Elnor is so fiercely loyal to him. And finally, there's also whoever is flying the old Romulan warbird we see firing on Picard's new ship. Presumably, that's a group who came into possession of the ship in desperation because the destruction of Romulus also wiped out lots of their race's vehicles. It could be that there are only a couple of groups, but right now, there are so many possibilities that it's hard to pin it down. Number 6 are the Romulan underground movement colonising Vulcan. In the first trailer, we saw birds of prey approaching a red planet, which looked like it could be Vulcan. The appearance once more of the Vasquez rocks, which have appeared lots of times in Star Trek history, also appears to denote Vulcan 2, where it appears Michelle Hurd's Raffi lives. And on the same planet as the rocks, we see what appears to be a city partly built, which then cuts to the first shot of Elnor seemingly drawing his sword to take on the people surrounding him. Notably, the ground here and in the scene that shows Picard's sword fighting appears to match the Vulcan surface. Could this be the Romulan underground movement who've settled on Vulcan after the destruction of Romulus and who are protective of their colony because of their past history of persecution? That would certainly explain why we see Picard seemingly arrested by Romulans wearing more civilian clothes, typically a sign of rebels or dissidents, in the first trailer. And it would also explain why he's sword fighting one. Number 5. Picard's crew aren't alone. This is a small observation, but when we see Picard's ship firing on the ancient Romulan warbird, his mysterious new class of ship isn't alone. There's another, smaller and different looking ship also firing on the alien vessel, suggesting there is more to Picard's initial crew than just the one ship. Could it be that Narek has his own vessel? Is that why he's not shown on the bridge of Picard's new ship? Or is this a second part of the crew that ends up being killed off in the first encounter? Number 4. Who's in the woods? Very briefly, there's a shot at one point of someone mysteriously standing in the woods. The figure appears to have antennae or is wearing an oversized helmet designed specifically to obscure their species. Could this perhaps be how Elnor first appears? It looks like the same setting as the surrounding areas of where Picard has his sword fight against the Romulan characters, so this could be Elnor making his first appearance and protecting Picard. Perhaps this is how the Romulans who capture him find out who Picard really is and actually align with him. The hint that it's Elnor mostly comes from the fact that he's wearing visibly similar robes, and even more crucially, he's also carrying a sword. Number 3. Picard's house is broken into. It's a little unclear where this location is, but you'd have to suspect that this brief scene shows the same people who are after Dahj ransacking Picard's home. If they're hot on her tail, it would certainly fit, and it would explain why Picard flees his vineyard home. The ceiling beams suggest an old building, or at least one designed to appear old, and there are only 3 possibilities in the trailers that might fit. The first is the Riker house, but how they'd track Dahj there would need some serious writing. Then there's also 7 of 9's home, which might actually fit with the sequence of her firing dual phasers, or maybe it's Picard's place. Whatever the case, these assailants are the same ones that we saw fighting Dahj in the first trailer. That's also the same staircase that we saw her screaming in agony on as her skin burned off in this second trailer. How that all fits together is really confusingly unclear right now. Number 2, Hugh cured. After rumours of his appearance, Hugh turns up in the second trailer twice, and it looks like he's been cured of his Borg infection in the same sort of way 7 of 9 was. We see that he's had his face augmentations removed, though he still bears the marks of his assimilation, and he looks like he's been through a lot. He's also not completely free of the Borg technology. There's also another shot of Hugh that offers another strange revelation. When he's seen running with Dahj and Picard in what looks like the Borg or Romulan facility, he's wearing the same breast badge that Dahj and the others at the facilities were wearing in the first trailer. That ties him to the facility as well, suggesting that could be perhaps how he's cured. Is he one of the experimentations? And even more ominously, he's wearing the same uniform as the scientists and guards working on the Borg corpse we see in the first trailer. Either he's stolen a uniform to escape, or he's one of them. Interestingly, Dahj is wearing the same costume in this sequence, which looks something like a jailbreak, as she was in the first trailer when Narek enters her quarters and she's sitting on her bed, with the same stuffed toy we see her younger self holding in the second trailer. Could this be Hugh and Picard breaking Dahj out? Number 1. Is Icheb killed? Or maybe Chakotay? It would seem that this loaded shot of 7 of 9 holding a visibly dead body is supposed to reflect whatever past trauma led her to seeking to help those who have no one to help them. With that in mind, it's likely the dead person is someone important to her, which would suggest that this is either a flashback showing the death of Chakotay, who was of course romantically linked to her, or Icheb, whose history as a Borg drone would fit with Picard's general story. The downed person does also appear to be wearing a maroon Starfleet uniform too. In both cases, the curly hair is a little bit of a sticking point, because neither had that style of hair when they appeared in previous shows. But then, this is sci-fi, and a different haircut is probably the silliest thing to get all bothered about. So there we have it. What else did you spot in this trailer? Share your thoughts below in the comments thread and subscribe, and keep tuned to What Culture on YouTube for more delicious Star Trek content. I've been Simon, we've been What Culture, and we'll see you next time.